Welcome back to another episode of Learn Dota. This episode is about team fighting, which is about grouping with your allies and fighting the enemy team. I'll be trying to teach you what the best times to fight are, how to play the team fight depending on your role, and where you should be positioning your hero during the team fights. This episode is created thanks to Red Bull, those that support me on Patreon, and those that sub to me on Twitch. Thanks a lot for your support, guys. Team fighting happens every game in Dota 2, and knowing how to team fight well can turn around big disadvantages in gold and experience that came about from a bad laning stage. The typical way to execute a teamfight well is a bit different for each hero, but ideally you'll use all of your abilities at maximum effectiveness and kill your opponents before they kill you. It sounds very simple, but you guys know it's harder, so we'll go over some principles. The first principle to teamfighting is you usually want to commit to fights when you have equal or more heroes, and you want to avoid fights where you have a disadvantage. If you have more heroes in a fight, you'll have more heroes to attack with, more spells to cast, and likely more items and net worth. That means you'll likely overpower and kill one of their heroes first, which makes your hero and damage advantage even stronger. Pretty much all fights start without everyone ready and nearby, so it's also important that you read how teamfights are developing so that you can react properly even if you're late. Let's say a teamfight starts 5v2, and it looks like your two heroes are going to die almost immediately. Is it worth it to teleport over to join the fight? Nope, they're dead. Continue whatever you're doing because it's better to limit your losses and collect whatever resources you can until your allies respawn. If your allies will live long enough for your teleport to finish, and you think you can get about equal return kills to your enemies, then it's worth it for you to arrive. When your team gets engaged on, you should start heading over right away, but keep an eye on the battle, because if it becomes very one-sided all of a sudden, you can cancel your teleport or go back to farming creeps. The second principle of teamfighting is that you want to start the fight by initiating on your enemies. Maybe the most iconic initiation is a Blink Ravage from Tidehunter, because it starts the fight with disabled enemies. That means that your team can approach and attack theirs for a few seconds without response. If you manage to kill enemy heroes during the initiation, it's a huge advantage because they'll have even less heroes, less spells, and less damage for the rest of the fight. Even if you don't have an amazing teamfight ability like Ravage, initiating first will still give your team an advantage because your team will know the initiation is coming and can start moving in preparation. Players reacting to initiation have to first realize a fight is starting, begin a teleport, or start walking over. If they arrive late or can't show up in time at all, that's a teamfight advantage that initiating first gives you. Even if the enemy is already close together, your opponents have to react to the surprise. This advantage might not be more than half a second, but that easily makes the difference. This might mean you get an extra auto attack in, or cast your spells twice before they do. The next principle of teamfights is using your resources to maximum effectiveness. We talked about using skills this way during the laning stage, but it's probably more important in teamfights because the implications of losing a fight are more grave. For example, if your team has a lot of burst damage heroes, it's probably good to nuke down their hard carry Phantom Assassin at the start of the fight. She deals a lot of damage, but doesn't have a ton of health early on, so burst damage skills counter her and give you a teamfight advantage. If the enemy's Bristleback is in front of the fight and you throw your burst damage on him instead, he's going to reduce a lot of it and likely have enough health to stay alive, meaning you're still in a 5v5 fight with less tools available, even if Bristle is hurt. That's an ineffective use of your skills. If you're a disable hero, getting good spell value matters even more. If I'm Crystal Maiden, I want to frostbite a hero who deals their damage by attacking, so that I can limit their damage with Disarm while dealing my damage. If I frostbite a spellcaster hero, they can still cast their spells, and my frostbite only prevents their movement while dealing some damage, so it won't be as useful. If I have an AoE skill, hitting as many heroes as possible is a big advantage because it increases the damage you deal in the fight. If there's a disable component with your ability, it massively increases your teamfight capabilities and can feel like you just used an ultimate on an enemy team instead of a basic skill, so try to maximize your spell impact. Principle 4 of teamfighting is to stay alive as long as possible and cycle your spells multiple times. For supports, most of their value comes from their abilities that have relatively low cooldowns. If you can cast multiple rounds of spells and use each spell in a maximum effective way, you impact more in the teamfight. For carries in teamfights, you're a high value target because you deal good damage, but you also need to be up close to enemies to fight them. So purchasing a Black King bar is pretty helpful so that you can engage enemy heroes while ignoring disables from enemies that might prevent you from dealing damage. The dangerous part is that Black King bar only lasts so long, so you need to score your kills before it runs out, or the remaining enemies will be able to disable or kill you. Basically, teamfights are a combination of these desires. Carries want quick and easy kills on many heroes during the teamfight, and supports want to elongate their lifespans while limiting the impact of the enemy carries and maximizing their spell effectiveness. Both teams want easy teamfights or perfect initiations, but most often the winning team is the one that reacts better and gets more value from their hero's spells while dodging enemy threats. Principle 5 of teamfighting is positioning, which is a huge part of teamfights. Positioning means where you're standing in relation to the enemy team and in relation to your team. Keep in mind that all heroes have attack and spell ranges that basically show their threat range. Heroes can also adjust their threat circles by moving with their hero or with skills and items that rapidly change their position. All of these factors of range and mobility make positioning important because it changes who is favored in the teamfight. Think of this like chess. Every piece moves differently, so you'll want to position your pieces in a way that lets you force trades that benefit your team, like trading a weaker pawn for a strong queen. Having strong positioning provides you the opportunity to force trades that are good for you. However, in chess, you can see all the pieces on the board and adjust accordingly. In Dota, you don't have perfect vision over all your enemies, so it gives you more opportunity to surprise opponents that can't always track your movements. They might see the position of some of your chess pieces, but they won't know exactly where the king is, and they won't see the knight coming until the teamfight has already started. The most obvious way to hide your movements is to be invisible, but that either takes a special invisible hero or an expensive item that you might not want to spend money on. Instead, embrace nature and hide in the trees to allow you to position effectively, with much less danger of being spotted and killed until you're ready to engage the enemy. For example, let's say you're expecting a teamfight here where they'll gank your carry. If you hide in the trees nearby as a squishy support, your opponents won't initiate on you first because they can't see you, even if they know you're nearby. If they initiate on your carry who has a higher health than you can respond almost instantly with your spells because of your nearby hidden positioning. Once you cast your spells, you can retreat to the trees again to hide until they come off cooldown. In this way, you'll fit all the previous attributes of teamfighting. You're in range to react when the fight starts, you're using your spells and time effectively, you're lying in wait to counter-initiate to your opponent's surprise, and you'll stay alive for multiple rounds of spells. If you're instead waiting for a gank and you're standing nearby your carry in vision of enemy creeps, it's much easier for the enemy team to quickly kill you first, or for their AoE disables to hit both of you guys, which means your impact is much less. So while teamfighting typically feels haphazard, good habits like hiding in tree clumps makes your team fights easier to win because you can both protect your hero from getting initiated on, while also leaving the enemy team unsure if they have a hero advantage. Here's a few ways you can abuse vision before fights. You could use a smoke to secretly position all of your heroes within range of their team without them realizing they're outnumbered. That should be a great teamfight outcome. On the defensive side, you can abuse the benefits of well-placed observer wards to spot enemies moving into position or hiding in trees. With that knowledge, you reposition your team to focus weaker heroes separated from their allies and gain a kill advantage at the start of the fight. So while positioning is a very broad term, it encompasses threat ranges of enemy and allied heroes, vision over enemies, and whether they can see your heroes and movements as well. If you have a vision advantage, it should allow your team to position better as well as initiate the fight. If you want to correct positioning mistakes more rapidly, or you want to initiate more quickly, movement speed increasing items are helpful. With that said, nothing beats the speed of a blink dagger or force staff to help your team punish enemy positioning mistakes, or to retreat from danger when you're out of position and finally realize it. Keep in mind that adjustments in your position should happen based on how the teamfight is going. If you've already killed some enemy heroes, it's now safer to move closer to enemies to chase and prevent escape. If you're losing a fight, retreating to a tower or to trees for juking is a good idea to buy you time for spells, or teleport back to your fountain to prevent an extra death. When gauging fights to figure out if your team is winning or not, try to be mindful of how effectively each team is using their skills in the fight so far. A whiffed Ravage against Black King Bard heroes means that the enemy spent teamfight juice that didn't accomplish much, and that might mean chase and pursue. If the enemy team's BKBs are almost running out and no one on your team is close to dying, then you know that right when their BKBs end, that they can't stop your disables and spell damage anymore, so it might be worth getting close and ready to initiate. Reading teamfights is difficult because it takes a lot of feeling and experience from playing Dota, not to mention knowledge of all 10 heroes in the game, but good positioning based on the developing fight helps you avoid getting punished and allow you to punish when mistakes are identified. You always want to balance the line of safety, close enough that you won't be killed instantly, but not too far away that you miss opportunities to defend your allies or punish your enemies' mistakes. If you limit your teamfight mistakes while punishing your enemies, you'll die far less, get more kills, and end up with an easy to win game of Dota 2. That's it for this episode of Learn Dota Teamfighting. The next episode is about ganking, which is about moving around the map unexpectedly and scoring kills on enemy heroes. But it's really about the precursor to a fight, how to look for and set up a kill with tips and tricks to perfectly execute the initiation to give you the highest chance of success. Thanks for watching.